Hello, good afternoon. So today on Chuku's chat, we have a wonderful guest. We are speaking to Martin Offiah MBE, an English former professional rugby league and rugby union footballer, inducted into the Rugby League Hall of Fame. Now, Martin scored over 500 tries. You do know. Cool, cool. No.
I understand rugby and I know that's impressive.
I'm just checking. He scored over 500 tries. This is not any guy during his rugby league career, making him the third highest try scorer and top scoring English rugby player of all time. Now he features in a statue outside Wembley Stadium. So when next time anyone gets a chance to go, just say, listen. Now, this rugby warrior has become an eco warrior as a brand ambassador at Connected Kerb. So we'll be talking a lot more about that, where he is helping the business build an infrastructure for smart cities and critically unlocking the UK's transition to electric vehicles. Wow. So hello, welcome.
Hello.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.
Oh, thanks for joining us. I'm really excited to hear so much more about your story and in particular learning about these smart cities. So today we're going to chop, chat, chill. When we chop, we're going to talk about food and things that nourish you. Chat, we're going to go into Connected Kerb. We're going to talk a bit more about EV and these electric vehicles. And then we're going to chill. So when we chill, we'll be talking travel, culture, maybe a little bit of TV, maybe a little bit of music.
Nice.
Sounds fun.
So let's chop. If you were cooking for one of your heroes, who would they be, and what would you cook for them, and why?
Who would I cook for? I'd have to say Michael Jordan. I'd love to cook for Michael Jordan. You know, I watched the Last Dance documentary that was on Netflix recently, and really gave you an insight into, you know, his dominance and what made him successful, and how, you know, he used his failures to strive him. Because a lot of people, they see successful people and they only see the success. They don't see the failure. They don't see what they went through. And, you know, it was fantastic watching that documentary, but it'd be great to talk to him to gain some more insights into his mind. So, and it would be quite entertaining as well, because Michael Jordan was a big hero of mine. What I would cook for him would have to be something Nigerian, you know, give him some flavors that he hasn't tasted before. I think in 2011, I won Come Dine with Me. It was a Rugby World Cup year. And so that Come Dine with Me got 4 rugby players together, myself, Kieran Bracken, Victor Ubogo, another Nigerian, and Gareth Chilcott. And I won it, and I cooked Nigerian stew, chicken stew with some plantain and rice. It was my main dish with a butterscotch mousse and a Thai coconut seafood soup to start. So that's probably what
Chef Martin, we might be recruiting.
I love it when you mentioned that you won. And there was a little check, obviously.
Because Victor, a good friend of mine, he puts on big dinners and you know, big charity dinners, and Nordhoff Robbins, who are a big charity who do a lot of work with music for children with learning disabilities. And I remember Vernon Kay was hosting the dinner, and we're talking, it's a big 300 table dinner in the biggest hotel in London, in Park Lane. And they were auctioning off Victor's meal. Victor, you know, going to come around your house and cook his Come Dine with Me dinner. So I got up to protest to Vernon. I said, look, man, they're paying like 10,000 for Victor to come around. I'm like, mate, I won the show. I was a sticker for that, but it was fun. I think Victor cooked, I can't remember what he cooked, I don't know. I remember what I cooked, but I know there was a lot of alcohol drank at his house. I remember that. And it was a fun week going around cooking and enjoying ourselves.
Nice. It's definitely a great show to be on. Especially, did you know all the guys that you were kind of on the show with at the time?
Yeah, they're all rugby players, all guys that I'd known, played with, against. So yeah, so it was very friendly, a lot of banter. But at the end of the day, you know, when it comes to sportsmen, they still like to win, don't they? So,
I can imagine how competitive that must have been.
I don't know if you know Victor Bogo, but he's quite a big lad, likes his food. And after he ate the food, he tried to say it wasn't his favourite. I'm saying, you can't say it's not your favourite when you've just yammed the whole lot. So I can see that he was so competitive. He wanted to win. He didn't want to eat all the food, but it was so tasty. Just not too much Scotch bonnet in it, but enough to make it tasty. So he couldn't help but eat it, and then tried to claim that it wasn't his favourite. But I said, you can't clear your plate and ask for seconds. That actions speak louder than words, as they say.
100.
So we're curious to know, how has refueling changed for you from back in your rugby days to now with the work that you do?
What you mean with regard to my diet?
Or I mean, whatever it could be. For some people, it's going to the sauna or chilling out with their family.
I suppose, yeah. In this times of COVID, there's a lot of stress. Ironically, I've ruptured my Achilles tendon back in July, and I'm still in the boot, and I don't get out of this boot until the 5th of October, which is just I mentioned dates. I'm not meant to mention dates. So we'll continue. I've just ruptured my Achilles tendon, and so that meant I couldn't go to the gym. But I'm all about adapting. So I erected a gym in my back garden where I've got a chin-up bar, so I can do upper body weights and exercises. So exercise is a big part of my life. I'm not one of these sportsmen that want to, let themselves go after they retire. I still believe that, that's in me. I want to be the best that I can be at all times. Obviously, you have to, reset your goals, but I didn't want to be that kind of sportsman that when I retired, I just gave up and became sedentary. So I just set new goals, whether that's appearing on different TV shows, which require physical ability, or setting challenges for myself, or trying to say to myself, I'd like to step on the rugby pitch one more time. Each time I've done that since I've been retired. Ironically, I've been retired now longer than I played, and I always say, you've done something right. People remember your name when you've been retired longer than you actually played, because I've been retired about 18 years now, and I only played for 15 years as a professional. But admittedly, I've appeared on quite a few reality TV shows in the last 18 years, which has probably helped keep my name in the sort of the public domain. But yeah, I'd say exercise is a big part for me in whatever form it takes. Running, going to the gym, just playing with my kids. Have two quite rambunctious boys.
That's an adjective. Yeah, you're searching, you're like, yeah, that's the best way to describe them.
I want to be kind for them, but they always say, Dad, I'm faster than you and I'm better than you. So we have that healthy competition between us, and there's not too many things I can beat them at now. So as I'm getting older, but I never give up.
So what do they play any particular sports? Are they following the rugby or?
My eldest son is a keen rugby player, goes to a private school, so we call him the posh boy in the family. Because he loves playing rugby. He's part of the London Irish player development program, so he's in their academy. He's only under 15 now, but he's going to go back, hopefully, fingers crossed, the pandemic dependent, in November to train with the under 16. So he's training a year up, so he's doing very well. My youngest is more into football. He's in the QPR development system, even though he hasn't been in that system for since the early part of the year due to the pandemic as well, and QPR closing down the development centre. But he's doing well, playing with his team Parkfield Youth, and he's developing. So yeah, I've got one rugby player and one footballer.
Oh, nice. So yeah, we're going to talk a bit about EV. Let's kick off.
Yeah, so you wanted to speak about sort of Connected Kerb and improving the EV charging infrastructure. But I thought, let's just start by what is EV? How would you explain that to someone who doesn't know?
Mentioning no names.
I did have to Google, but I thought it would be better coming from Martin.
True. EVs are basically just electric vehicles, just ordinary cars, but they're powered by an electric motor, which is supported by, you know, a battery, as opposed to an internal combustion engine, you know, which is an engine which is powered by, you know, fossil fuels, maybe petrol or diesel. You know, they are cleaner for the environment, you know, because of the emissions. I don't know if you know about the statistics with air pollution. You know, 40,000 people a year die because of poor air in urban areas.
In the UK.
In the UK, yeah, which is a fantastic, you know, fantastical figure. And when you think about, you know, the ozone and climate change, and you know, it just better for the environment. They are cheaper. You know, there is barriers to entry in that, you know, they are slightly more expensive to buy, but you know, the prices are going down all the time. And you know, the infrastructure. My journey came and started in 2016. Another rugby player, a guy called Andy Gomersall, who played for England in the 2003 World Cup, gave me a lift in an EV back in 2016. I think we were down at the Cheltenham Festival, and he gave me a lift in this car, and it was, you know, I don't know if you know anything about EVs, but they have tremendous acceleration because of the instant power and the torque of the vehicles, though. So they're really fun to drive as well. And it was an i3, and I thought to myself, wow, this is you know, an interesting car. So I did a bit of research on it, you know, saw how cheap they were to run. You know, I was fortunate enough that I had a driveway. So in 2017, when my wife had an accident in her vehicle, I got an i3 as well. So because I'm fortunate enough to have a drive, I could get a government subsidy and put a charger on my drive. So as long as I didn't go beyond the range of the vehicle, I could, you know, plug my vehicle in at night, and every morning I'd have a full tank of electricity or fuel to do my journeys. And when you think about 80% of daily journeys in the whole of the UK are 40 miles and below, you know, for most of my journeys, that was fine. The public infrastructure only comes into play when you go beyond the range of your vehicle. And that's when we started to experience problems because, you know, as I said, because I had a driveway, I didn't need to worry about public charging unless, you know, you were going, you know, to Manchester, or because I live in London, or go, you know, on a long journey. And it's only, as I say, when we tried to go long journeys, we realized that the infrastructure was not great. And so, you know, range anxiety and all that really exists. And so it was a strain to have an electric vehicle to do long journeys. But thankfully, you know, things changed for me. I got a Tesla, or slightly a bit more expensive, but because of the infrastructure that Teslas have with the superchargers, I could drive, you know, throughout Europe, throughout the UK, because of the charging infrastructure. I don't know if you know much about superchargers, but this is the charging network that Elon Musk put in place, but it's only allowed for people who own Teslas. So, you know, that just got me thinking, you know, if everyone in the country had the ease and convenience that I have with a charger at home, I've now got a charger at the gym, I've got superchargers, I've got about 3 or 4 superchargers at Heathrow, at Westfield, a shopping centre near me. You know, I can, you know, I've driven to Manchester, I've driven to the south of France, and, you know, because of the supercharger network and the costs, it just come right down. Before I was driving a Range Rover, which would cost me £100 to fill up every time, whereas, you know, electricity costs are far cheaper, you know, to fuel an i3 would be, you know, £2.50, and to fuel a Tesla, which you'll get 200-300 miles, would at maximum be, you know, something like £9 if you did it at home. But if you use the supercharger network, it's free. So I literally can drive from here to the south of France and it's free. So I just thought to myself, you know, infrastructure is key. So when the opportunity came to invest and work with a company like Connected Kerb, who were opening up EV charging to the masses, because as I mentioned earlier, I have a driveway. A lot of people in urban areas don't have driveways, and they don't have that. They can't just plug in overnight. But Connected Kerb system is designed for people without driveways, because we put power and data into the curb, similar to what you have with an Alexa, and then we can enable existing street furniture like parking signs or bollards with just a plug. So that reduces street clutter, and you can put them on streets, you know, in urban areas. And that's what I'm basically involved in now, you know, talking to a lot of local authorities to get these on the streets. And so I've been using my connections with sporting clubs to link into local authorities, because every sporting club has a relationship with their local authority, and just using my networks on LinkedIn and other connections, and going to conferences where I met Chris Hook, I believe is a friend of yours as well. He's working with Uber and some of the great works that Uber are doing, trying to transition all of their vehicles onto an EV platform by 2025 with their clean air plan. And so we've just been sort of trying to get partners and, you know, just to link up, because this is not something that one company can do by itself, you know, about, you know, technology, governments, companies coming together and just providing solutions for everybody. And another great stat is 80% of people, let's say, charge at home, because that's where you want to charge. If you had the iPhone, even if you could charge it down the road in 5 minutes, you're not going to walk 10 minutes to go and charge your iPhone when you can literally charge it at, you know, by your bed and have a full battery in the morning. So, and when you think that cars are stationary, this is another great stat, cars are stationary for 95% of their lifetime. So from, you know, factory to scrapyard, you know, that's the life of a vehicle. But 95% of its time, it's stationary. So it makes sense to charge the car while it's stationary. And you only have to have arterial charging for when you want to go on long journeys. And as I say, 80% of the time, you're only going to be driving your vehicle 40 miles or less. So it just makes sense to charge it at home if you can.
Go, because I've got a few.
Yeah, so I actually want to, I'm curious, there was so much there, but I just want to know, prior to getting your own electric vehicle and experiencing these challenges, had you had an interest in sort of like sustainability and the environment, or was this all thing just come out of the new car essentially?
I think it did. I mean, I've always been about, you know, sustainability. My motto in life is, you know, if it's not sustainable, it won't last. You know, that comes in anything that comes, you know, in health, for the body and the planet. You know, even if it's in your finances, you know, if you're spending more than you make, then that's not a good thing. So it's got to be sustainable. You know, I've always been about sustainability and health. You know, even if, you know, if I'm in the pub more than I'm in the gym, that's not sustainable. You know, if I'm playing PlayStation more than I'm training, that's not sustainable, and I'm not going to have a great career. You know, people don't end up having MBEs and stuff. That doesn't happen by chance. That's comes from a mindset, from a thought. And that is about sustainability, about creating, about having longevity, because everything's about longevity. You know, even when you think of anything, when you think of greatness in any field, you always think about who's done it the longest. You know, it's all right getting an Emmy, but who's got the most Emmys? It's all about getting the premiership. Who's got the most premierships? It's all about who's got Olympic gold medal, but who's got the most? So in everything we do, you know, if someone cooks you one great meal, you think, oh, wow. But if they cook you great meals for over your lifetime, that's what you remember. So the world is, and we are looking for consistency and sustainability in ourselves as individuals and everything that we do. So why wouldn't we look for that in everything that we do? So it's just an extension of the way that I've thought, really. But sometimes, you know, it takes time to reflect. That's one good thing about the pandemic. It's given us time to stand still and reflect about the things that we do, because a lot of times, even when we do things which are correct, we don't have time to, like, you know, put a label on it or to reinforce it and to make it sustainable, to do it for a long time. Because sometimes people do things right and they wonder, well, why has everything gone wrong all of a sudden? And you look back, you think, well, am I doing everything now that I was doing 5 years ago? And if that's not the case, then there's your answer. So it's just come from an understanding of sustainability, and something I've taken with me, really. And so, you know, and just as you get older, you realize things. You think, yeah, you know, that's what I did then. You know, I trained hard, I did that sustainable. And I think of that in my body, my health, you know, and the planet. And now I've got kids and I want to leave a great planet for them. So it was just a natural progression of maturing, really, and becoming an adult, as I say, a parent, you know, thinking about other people, getting married, you know, your parents getting older, just maturing and thinking about that. And, you know, I think that is a mindset, is a healthy mindset, and something I talk about, and something that, you know, you try and pass on to other people.
Yeah, I think it's spot on, because I think, as I mentioned before, before Chuku's, I used to work in that field around sustainability, and I think a lot of people had this like idea that it was all people who maybe just wanted to like hug trees and things like this. And like at the end of the day,
No, there are some people hugging trees.
Yeah.
There's nothing against hugging trees. And if that calms you and centers you, then I say go for it.
But I think for me it was more case, as you just said, it's just an idea of a mindset, right? Like if you can repair something and use its like intrinsic qualities to like improve it, then why would you not do that? And like as you just said, that can be from health, that can be from like a relationship with a partner to a relationship with a friend. Do you know what I mean? How can you make the most of what you have?
Absolutely.
With without necessarily having to making something else worse, like it 100%.
And that's another big plus for Connected Kerb, is that because people are, even though there was a lot of debate maybe a year, 2 years ago, but it's common knowledge now that EVs are better for the environment, than driving ICE vehicles. But Connected Kerb take that one step further, and we look at the actual infrastructure that we're putting in and how sustainable and the long life is the actual infrastructure as well. Because people look at the cars, but people are also now looking at the infrastructure. That's what 80% of our actual infrastructure is made from recycled materials. Like our above ground chargers are housed in recycled truck tires, or we use recycled plastics. And our no boxes that go into the ground, because we separate the charger from the plug, which we believe will increase its longevity because it's a modular design. So if it's modular, you can just upgrade an individual thing. Whereas like your iPhone, as soon as the iPhone 12 comes out, the iPhone 11 is obsolete. So we don't want that to happen.
Can I just take us back? I just wanted to understand. So you said you had a charger on your driveway, and so like, how generally, but obviously, if I wanted to go in about doing this, how do you do that? And then also, then you mentioned about like superchargers, and I'd really like to understand how that difference to the charger that you had on your driveway.
Yeah, well, what a lot of people don't realize, you can actually charge an electric car up with just by plugging it in. It wouldn't be very fast because it'd be 3 to 7 kilowatts, and it's all about speed of charge. So you can literally charge your car up by plugging it into the the 3-pin plug in the wall in your house, as some people do. If I went to a friend's house and he lived in the country and he didn't have a charger, I could literally, if I'm there for the whole weekend, I could plug my car up in just in his wall socket, and that probably would still take about 24 hours to charge, but I could do it. The next step up of charging.
So 24 hours to charge, and then you could be off again.
You'd be up again. But if you but normally that's not obviously the most effective way to charge it. So what you normally get is what most houses have is a 7 kilowatt charger outside the house, which would then an i3 would probably charge it up in 3 and 4 hours. A big car like my Tesla would probably charge it up in say 11 hours. But most charging, you want to be able to charge your car overnight. You really need to charge it for what you need. You don't really need to charge it really fast at home, because it'd be pointless, to be more expensive, and everyone couldn't do it because you'd have to upgrade the grid, and the system wouldn't work. So you only need to charge it what you need. But if you're going on a long journey, then you don't want to be waiting a few hours. If I'm halfway to Manchester and I want to charge my car, I don't want to wait 3 or 4 hours or even 2 hours. So that's why you need a bigger, faster, more superior charger, a supercharger, something that can charge the car up very quickly, say in 20 minutes, 15 minutes. Because, if you've gone beyond the range of a vehicle, you've driven for 200 miles, so you don't mind stopping for 20 minutes, to get a coffee, have a comfort break. It's not often you're going to travel more than 200 miles and not stop for at least 10, 20 minutes, get a quick supercharge, and then move on. So that's the different types of charging that there are. You have the slow trickle charge, you have fast charge, which is 7 kilowatt, then you have 22 kilowatt charging, and then it kind of goes up. And I think the fastest chargers they have now are like 250 kilowatts, I think. The latest Tesla superchargers are, and they will charge really fast. But so you don't really need that. You only need it in a certain scenarios.
So with the Tesla infrastructure now, that is all around the UK and through Europe, and that one is
Tesla.
But for Tesla cars only, correct?
Yes, the Tesla cars only. But there's a company, there's a few companies now who are bringing these out for all sorts of cars. So anyone could use them. So it's not a closed shop. But the reason why that Tesla had these is because Teslas were very expensive. So when you bought the car, you're also buying into the charging network as well. Okay. And that's why with EVs, sometimes that's been a barrier to entry, is the cost of the cars. Like the cost of getting to, I couldn't afford to, or couldn't justify buying a brand new Tesla. They're like £120,000, but I bought a used one for about 40,000. Still quite a lot of money to pay for a used car, but I did the figures, and if I kept the car for 8 years, because I normally tend to keep my cars quite a long time, then over the time it would pay for itself. When you're thinking reduced fuel costs, you know, say I'll be paying about 300 a month, that's like 3,000, you know, what, 4,000 a year just on fuel savings alone, you know, reduced parking charges, congestion, ULEV charges, road tax. So it all mounts up. So as the costs of buying an EV come down, and the you know, the costs of you know, using the EV are still high, that's when it's going to make it a no-brainer for people to transition to an EV. And with the government also putting tax breaks in for you know, for companies and fleets cars, then yeah, you're going to see that over the years that the number of EVs on the streets is just going to rise and rise and rise until they overtake ICE vehicles. And I'm not sure if you're also aware that the government have put a new car ban for ICE cars. So petrol and diesel cars, you won't be able to buy a brand new one, you know, from after 2035. There's consultations at government level to bring that down to 2032. So it's not that long. So we have to get the infrastructure out there, because by, you know, it's 2020 now, by 2025, the clock's gonna start ticking. And so we need to get the infrastructure early to get people to transition now. Otherwise, you know, it's just gonna be, you know, pandemonia, you know, if people are gonna all try to switch late on.
So and then with Connected Kerb, you mentioned that there's like a light, you know, a street light, and you plug into that. So how, just explain a bit, could you just clarify how that works, so that you know, those who are out a driveway could actually, you know, use the EV infrastructure?
There are solutions already out there which use street lights for power source, but I'm getting into technical things. I'm not a technical person, but I'll try and break it down as simple as I can. But again, that's the amount of power in a street light is marginal. So because obviously, you know, with a lot of low power lighting and stuff like that, so they're only slow chargers. So it's very similar to charging at home in a three-point plug. So we go in, we just put the charger in the ground. So we trench from a power source. We put the power in the ground. So our chargers sit below ground. There's nothing above ground. All that is above ground with Connected Kerb solution is the plug socket, which we put onto a parking post. You know, a parking post where it says, you know, don't park here. So that's what we enable, because, you know, if you put in the ground, then you can put a relatively 7 to 22 kilowatt charger, which is still, you know, pretty fast and a lot better than, you know, just enabling, you know, a lamppost.
Nice.
Gosh,
I know it's a lot. It's fascinating, and that's why I loved it as well, because it is great. And you know, each day I'm learning more and more about charging. But what we have to do, we have to make deals with local authorities, because obviously, even if it's just outside your house, you can't go and dig up, because that belongs to the local authority. So we have to do deals with local authorities to go in, to dig up the roads and put the chargers in, you know, en masse in streets. And that's what I'm involved in, talking to a lot of local authorities, but also sporting clubs and wherever cars dwell for long periods of time, with that shopping centres. I say I'm talking to a lot of Premiership football clubs, not only for their workers and their employees, but also for people, you know, soon people who are, you know, just traveling supporters are going to need this infrastructure. So we're going to need it everywhere.
Yeah, but just you mentioned about it being soon, and you mentioned about this 2032 date where essentially the new ICE cars will be banned. When do you think there will be that sort of maybe tipping point?
Yes.
Yeah, or, you know, where the infrastructure will be, you know, cheap enough for people like myself.
that is the $64 million question, because obviously this is going to take a huge investment to put all this infrastructure out there. The government have got, through the Office of Low Emission Vehicles, OLEV, have got funds, but they are also waiting for, private companies like Connected Kerb to come in and put money behind it. And it's always been a bit of a chicken and egg, because people didn't want to invest until the cars were there. And people didn't want to invest in the cars until the infrastructure was there. So it was a bit, there's been, and so that's why they had to bring the date forward, because because the original date was 2040. So people thought, we're not doing anything, we're just doing nothing, because it's 2040, there's no infrastructure, so I'm not going to buy a car. I'm not going to put the infrastructure because no one's buying a car. So that's why the government are bringing the date forward. First it's 2035, which it is now. Hopefully it's going to be 2032, just to put pressure on society to do something, because there's a certain level of apathy, and the people are thinking, what's the right thing to do? The whole Betamax VHS argument always comes up in EV charging. What is going to be the right thing? Because you don't want to invest in something for it to be the wrong thing. We're talking millions of pounds. I think the Society for Motor Manufacturers and Traders said that by 2030 we're going to need 2.8 million chargers out there. That's the number of chargers we're going to need out in society. So that's a lot of money to invest, and that's another way why Connected Kerb solution is great, because our charger is in the ground. It's literally like a plug, so we can plug into various forms of charging infrastructure. Now it's plugs. I don't know if you know what induction charging is. Like you've seen it with the phones when they just charge. Wireless charging. So they believe that that's what vehicles will be charged in the future. So with our infrastructure, we have a no box under the ground, so you can charge an induction pad into that. So that's why we're saying you have to be flexible. You don't know what the future is going to look like. But if you are flexible, then you can fit into it.
It's great. I feel like I've just literally just take a little mini trip to the future.
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
And on that note, I was curious. Obviously, we've spent a lot of time today talking about electric vehicles. But I gather that you've travelled quite a bit, and I was curious to know whether you'd seen other elements of sort of smart cities that you think that might be next for us here in the UK, or actually, if you were in charge, you think I'd love to bring this concept that I've seen in this other country here to the UK.
Yes, smart cities are the future. We've got a problem. We need to charge electric vehicles, so that's an opportunity, and that's another thing that Connected Kerb have thought about when designing their solution, and that is making our streets smart, because we all know that data is the future. And that's why when we go in, when we put the power connection to charge the electric vehicles, we also put a data connection in there. So we also know about 5G, whether you're for or against it, it's coming. So our solution, can tap into 5G. So we could be a neutral 5G host. IoT sensors with parking sensors, air quality monitoring sensors, just a myriad of things that we can do to make our streets a lot more smart, a lot safer. Autonomous vehicles are coming to be able to talk to autonomous vehicles and understand the data that they can provide for lots of different companies, and whether that's the car companies, whether that's for the local authorities, let's say temperature sensors to know whether it's you need to grit the streets, because in the winter sometimes they just go out and grit the whole street, but they'll know the temperature and what the future temperatures would be. So there are things that we haven't even thought of yet in the future that we believe our system will be able to integrate. It's almost like having Alexa at the side of the curb. There's a myriad of things that we can do, but we know, like when it's in a house, we've got Wi-Fi, and even faster Wi-Fi now when 5G comes in. We've got a power connection, so we know it doesn't matter whether it's going to be the latest computer, HD, TV, wherever it is. That with your Wi-Fi and with your 3-pin plug, you're going to be able to facilitate it, and that's the mindset we have with the charging. So no matter what comes in the future, we believe at Connected Kerb, we'll be able to integrate into that solution with what we call our node box, our intelligent edge computer. It's literally having a power and connection and an edge computer in the ground. And as we know, with a computer, there's a myriad of things that we can do.
It's only now I'm hearing Connected Kerb and getting white. But then,
oh Lord.
It's connected. It's connected.
No, but it's just so, yeah.
And so we
are no more from me.
Yeah, even though we are seen as a EV charging company, we are not. We are basically a smart city company that hosts EV. It's just one of the things that we do. But at the moment, it's a very important thing. Whereas, if you use other companies, they give you an EV charger, then I don't know how long it's going to last. 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. It's going to be obsolete, and you're going to have to dig that up, put it in the skip and get rid of it. Where we think it's an infrastructure play. You put the infrastructure in, it's going to be there for 20, 30 years time. And if it's one controller, one deck that you're going to need to change, then you just take it out and you replace it. Yeah. But the whole system is still there.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting that, like, just to actually, I think obviously sometimes you can be thinking that it's like a million miles away from like happening, but we're talking about 10 years sort of time, and like that time will happen very soon. And I think even just like think about for example your kids or even our younger siblings, like growing up in a world of like where like something like YouTube or like Instagram is like something they grew up with. Anyways, when we were growing up, it wasn't something that you ever thought could exist. So that is super. Yeah, I think it's super interesting to like kind of plug into like what's actually coming next. But thank you so much. I think we're gonna chill a little bit. Oh yes. So you've starred in a few TV shows already, but if you could star in one more TV show of your choice, doesn't even have to be in the UK, what would you choose and why?
Oh, as you can see, I do like talking. So I've done a lot of TV shows, but the one that I wanted to do, probably the biggest show I've done, probably Splash or Strictly Come Dine, probably the two biggest shows I've done. But I always wanted to do Big Brother because I always thought that, because I'm about social interaction and that social experiment, and just talking and meeting people and sharing your stories and just educating, not so much educating, but just giving the perspectives and getting people can take from that and basically educate themselves. I believe that you don't educate people educate themselves. Information is there and views are given and people can learn from people, but it's what you take. A teacher can say something at the front of the classroom, and in front of a room of 30 children, and each of them will take different things away from it, and someone will get A's and someone won't listen, and some, what I mean? So I do believe that people educate themselves, and I love that social interaction and just to understand and learn about people, get to know the people, understand why you might find certain things frustrating about somebody, and understand that because I love the human experiment. That's what I think life is truly about. It's that human experiment, that human interaction, and and the things that you can remember, the funny people you remember, and the things that you do, and the things that you learn. And so any program that allows me to interact with people, I love it.
Would you do Big Brother UK or Big Brother Nigeria?
I was just thinking that.
Brother, I think that I'd be too scared to do Big Brother Nigeria. I'll go on there, they'll be like, "Oh, you," they'll just cuss me too much, and I can barely understand how. I always wonder, in Nigeria, they'd have to speak broken English because obviously there's Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo, all different languages. So I always think in countries that have more than one language, what language would they speak on their TV shows? I always used to find that quite an interesting thought. Would one language be the dominant one, or would they just speak pidgin English? Or so I think I'd be too scared to do Big Brother in Nigeria, but maybe I'd just have to man up or something.
And if you were recommending a book to teenage you, what would it be and why?
I was going to recommend a book to teenage me. God, I didn't used to read that much when I was young, if I'm honest. I probably read a little bit more now than I did. I'd probably say, I'd probably say The Chimp Paradox. I'd say, any age. I'd probably say a book called The Chimp Paradox by Professor Stephen Peters, I believe, was a psychologist who worked with the Liverpool football team, I think. But it just got you. That was the only book I've read which really got me to understand how my mind works and how I react to things. And probably a book that you have to at least understand to be successful in life, to understand how the human brain works, and how, you know, you don't want to get hijacked by your impulses. There's a lot of people in jail now who, if they had read that book, they probably wouldn't be there now, because there's a lot of people who have done things, you know, and after it, they've thought to themselves, I didn't really want to do that. And if they'd literally taken 10 seconds to pause, they wouldn't have done that. You know, if after 10 seconds you still really want to do something, then do it and then suffer the consequences. But for this is many people, if they gave themselves that time, because, you know, it talks about the chimp brain and how, you know, back in less sophisticated times, we needed that chimp brain to help us, you know, our instinct, our gut, whatever you want to call it, to be able to avoid going down that, you know, path and being eaten, or going down that path and living a full life. And it just understand how you think, and how, you know, sometimes you think of and do something, and road rage and where that comes from. And just understanding yourself, you know, and you can use it as a tool as well to be successful, because you'll understand it and see it in others, and that allows you to communicate. And just understanding that communication is not about what you say, it's what the other person hears. Because a lot of times people say, well, I said this, but yeah, you might have said that, but what did the other person hear? And so just understanding yourself, and, you know, and I think that would make not only you better, but if everyone gets on board with that, you know, it just makes a lot of our interactions are going to be a lot less. Because when you get two chimps talking to each other, as you see in the street, I always used to think it was funny how two people who don't know each other and have never met can get into an argument in the street just by looking at each other. To me, still, that doesn't make sense. I've seen it so many times. I'll be like, what you look at? What? And they start fighting. Like, that does not make sense. And for that interaction to lead to something, that someone goes home, gets a gun or gets a knife, stabs the person, and ruins the rest of their life just from, you know. But if they thought, okay, that's my chimp. Oh, that's not me. That's my chimp. Because I don't really want to get angry just because someone's that. You know, if that person is indeed an idiot, which I think he is, then why am I going to ruin my life because there's an idiot stand up? There's lots of idiots around, so I'm going to be walking in a minefield of idiots. If that's the case, so when you break things down like that and understand yourself, it enables you to just walk a truer path. And you know, and that's, I say, you know, that. But then again, a lot of the things that I learned in the book, I probably did a little bit anyway. But it just gives things you do a name. Because I always say in life, right, when you've got the manual, even though people, what I find crazy as well, people can buy something, there's a manual, they still won't read it, right? But there were people who did things before there was a manual, who actually had to write the manual. Do you understand what I say? So that's what sometimes, you know, the things I was doing, you know, with visualization and motivation, that's what I liked about what Michael Jordan talked about, and the things, you know, he was doing things that are now in books before they wrote the book. You know what I mean? And that's what I think, you know, the chimp paradox, you know, gave me, and an understanding of things I did before I even read the book. But if I read the book, I think I would have done things even better.
Yeah, it's a book America and I have both read and big fans of. So yeah, very much resonates. I think, yeah, when you learn, like, we've both got our chimps are different, but we're both aware of our own chimps, and it is.
Yeah, I've always studied a bit of. You studied any NLP and stuff like that, and understanding, you know, neuro-linguistic programming, and just to understand, you know, communication and the power of language and the words you can say, and, you know, to lift people up and to relax you and to motivate you. And that's why I always say things like, oh, he's a great motivator. Yeah, but he's using techniques, and obviously, you know, we've seen it now with advertising and the language they use to be seductive. And yeah, just understanding and learning. And, you know, some of it, you know, you take on board, some of it you don't.
Martin, thank you so much. Yeah, from dipping into the future to just, as you said, about talking about introspectively how you can learn more about yourself. Yeah, it's been super fascinating having that chat. And I'm really interested to go and learn a lot more about, like, EV and
maybe get me one.
Maybe not right now anyway. he said the infrastructure is too expensive. So Christmas present 2025 maybe. Yeah, 2025.
Yeah. They're coming down. They're coming down in price, and as they come off these 3-year leases. As I say, both my EVs, I didn't buy either of them brand new. They're quite expensive. Even the i3 brand new is like 35, 40k. But but you use one that comes off a 3-year lease, with a company, then becomes very attractive.
Yeah, nice, cool. Well, we look forward to speaking to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.